Okay, so a very good evening to everybody, and thank you so much for showing up online to listen to my talk. I don't know if I'll be able to deliver as you expect, but this is one of the topic which I'm very much interested in, and I think that it will not only be advantageous for Indian military or for China and India relationship, but for a world peace as well. So my topic today is advantages of understanding Mandarin to Indian military. As we all know that India and China relationship is not very kind or in a very good state right now. And we recently had, on December 9th, we have a border skirmish at Taiwan, India and China border skirmish. So before moving forward, I would like to explain that how I got to this topic and why actually it is a very personal engagement to me, and how I started to get involved in this project is because there is a book on war. It's written by Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's a scientist, and the book is and the very first line in that book is by Abraham Lincoln. He said, "Do I not destroy my enemies when I make them my friends?" But if India and China is they are sharing a very enemy status right now. So, but how can we be friends? And how can our military, who are actually in a not very good position on borders, how can they make a friend? They become friends because both sides are dealing with the same problem, the military, because the India-China border dispute at that place, it's very cold there. The weather is not at all favorable. So how can they become friends? I think language, understanding the language and understanding the culture is very much important right now. Okay, so India-China, we all know that we had a war in 1962. After that, the relationship was quite okay. We didn't notice any skirmishes at our borders before 2022. And before that, Doklam, which had happened in Bhutan, took place. But India and China, we directly involved in skirmishes since 2020. And this is the border map where we have the problems. Siachen Glacier, as the name itself suggests, that it's a very cold place, and where Indian Army and Chinese armies are deployed these days.
Sorry, Arushi, that Professor Fang asked you, do you want to speak Mandarin to make a presentation, if you can?
Right now?
Yeah.
I can try. I'm so sorry because my screen shows only my present PPT. So I'm not able to see the messages.
Okay, no problem. You can choose. Yeah.
Okay, I can use bilingual, sometimes Chinese, because I prepared in English. So sorry. Okay, so I was saying, 为什么这个题目对我来说很重要？是因为我2018年的时候开始学中文。Can you understand my Chinese right now? Because I think
good. Yeah, very good Mandarin.
Okay,
perfect.
Okay, thank you. So I was just a student of a foreign language then. 我2018年的时候自学中文，可是以后因为我很喜欢想一想，然后我看很多新闻，然后国际关系上一直说中国越来越发达，然后中国跟印度的关系不好，然后我的人生，我怎么可以用我的人生？然后我觉得，如果我可以好好学华语，然后我如果有能力可以教华语的话，我可能可以帮助这个世界。because 因为如果印度跟中国有战争，发生什么不好的事情或是战争，那个战争对整个世界来说不太好的一种事情，因为两个国家都有 nuclear weapon。所以对整个世界来说特别不好。然后 因为中国也是一个 economy 非常好， 每个国家都在思考，不是每个国家，但是大部分的国家一定要靠中国，而且中国跟印度人口很多。然后我看了一本书 ，Neil deGrasse Tyson， 他就是一个astronomer， 他写那一本书的，所以一句话就是 Abraham Lincoln 的，他就说 ，Do I not destroy my enemies when I make them my friends？ 如果你跟你的敌人变成朋友，那这样你是不是destroy 他？你是不是让他感觉哦，他没办法harm你，然后，所以中国跟印度的关系最近变成非常不好，特别是从2020年，India-China， 印度跟中国有那个 disputed area 就是3440 kilometers， 而且它是 de facto border， 没有they have not signed any actual contract. It's a line of actual control, and it is poorly demarcated. And Galwan Valley, it's this side where the clashes happened in the late 2020. And Siachen Glacier is here. Actually, India and China, we both have a problem in Arunachal Pradesh as well. In a way, Chungko the Arunachal Pradesh, just South Tibet. It's not India. It's not a part of India. So if Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, or the Home Minister of India, if they used to visit those Arunachal Pradesh for any purposes, China, most of the time, China used to say, give a notice that they don't like the official or formal visit of the Prime Minister or the Home Minister of India to that place, because it considered it as South Tibet. And recently, on December 9th, the skirmish that happened on Tawang, just before that, in the summit, international summit, Indian Prime Minister and the Premier of China, Xi Jinping, they met actually, and the Indian Prime Minister himself went and shook hands with the Chinese counterpart. But just after that, the skirmish happened in Tawang. So it's a very, complicated message that China is sending to India, because we all know that PLA is controlled by Chinese Communist Party. Like anything which PLA does, it is actually it have to go through the Communist Party. And then my topic, why foreign language education in the military is must. I believe that each of the not every army personnel need to know the language of the opposition, but but military, any military, they need the linguistics, especially if you're not having a very good relationship with the counterpart, because if you can speak, you can write, and you know the culture, you have a better opportunity to understand the counterpart, and the non-negotiable can become negotiable if we can just put ourselves in the shoes of the other person and try to understand why that officer is doing whatever the officer is doing. And being able to communicate directly with different people in their native language is one of the first steps to founding a lasting, stable personal or business relationship. But when it comes to the military, be them land, naval, or air forces, it may become a matter of life or death, not only for the person, but for all in direct subordination during the combat mission. And beginning of foreign language education in the military, it's nothing new. As we all know that US is the torchbearer of most of the soft power thing or most of the academic things. So it started in Americas only. And historically, when during the World War II, a lot of American soldiers, they went to China and they actually learned Mandarin. I am so sorry, I'm not speaking in Mandarin right now because I'm a bit nervous. So I will continue speaking English.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, so US, as it's a torchbearer in most of the academic fields, so they realize the need for foreign languages competence for the military. And they believe that there is no doubt that foreign language skills and cultural expertise are critical capabilities needed by today's military to face the challenges of our present security environment, as they recognize the need and provided the impetus for both cultural awareness and enhanced pre-deployment language preparation. And Department of Defense, US Department of Defense, they actually identify foreign language skills and regional expertise as critical war fighting skills. It is actually considered as war fighting skills by Department of Defense in USA. That must be integrated into future operations to ensure that combat forces deploy with the essential ability to understand and effectively communicate with native populations, local and government officials, and coalition partners when in theater. And then in NATO, NATO, it's a very, because of NATO has been in the news recently a lot because of Ukraine and Russia war. And in that NATO only, there are divisions there to check if a country's army is capable of speaking NATO language or not. So English is one of the important language in NATO. And in there is a term which is called E0356, language requirements for deployable forces. So it's Romania's commitment to the North Atlantic Alliance, that is NATO, through which military personnel participating in NATO-led actions are certified to possess good and very good English language levels. The certification is done in accordance with the provision of STAGNEX 601 Standardization Agreement, levels of linguistic competence. So what is this standardization agreement, levels of linguistic competence? It's a profile that represents the level of knowledge of a foreign language in accordance with the rules established by NATO, and the assessment of foreign language knowledge is carried out in a unitary system by reference to unique criteria in order to meet the requirements of international media post allocation to member states. And history and background of foreign language teaching in the military. Again, the Defense Language Institute Foreign Language Center in Monterey, California, DLI FLC, started its program as early as 1941 at the Presidio of San Francisco, only 6 weeks before Pearl Harbor is attended by all 4 branches of military service and select individuals sponsored by their agency. This is the case in USA, but in India, as because in the documents are not very much very easy to access, Indian documents. So I have only, because I am also a part-time student, I work part-time in India Studies Center of National Tsinghua University. So I came to know that before, like 6 to 7 years earlier, India Studies Center of NTHU, they helped some Indian military personnel to learn this language, Mandarin, but it's not. But I am not capable of getting the documented. It has documented. And our moderator also informed us that he had he have an experience of teaching Mandarin in Gujarat to military personnel. In RRU, that is a university for, it's a very famous university of India for military purposes and national strategy or peace studies. Okay, so US have this thing. The US Department of Defense every year, in the end, probably in November or December, they used to generate a report that is on China military power report. And this year, they have also generated this report. This report illustrates how the Chinese Communist Party has frequently turned to the People's Liberation Army in support of its global ambition, and provides an assessment of PLA capabilities that underscores why the PRC represents the Defense Department facing challenge. In addition to continuing to monitor the PRC involving military strategy, doctrine, and force development, the United States, alongside allies and partners, will continue to urge China to be more transparent about its military modernization program. The department remains focused on the operational concepts, capabilities, and resources necessary for meeting this facing challenge. And there is a think tank very famous think tank of India, that is China Analysis and Strategy. It's based in New Delhi. The chairperson of, the president of that think tank, Mr. Jaidev Ranade, I found his remark on China that it's clear demonstration of Xi Jinping authority and confidence over the new year. Chinese President Xi Jinping began implementing the crucial second phase of military reforms announced earlier on. It's from 2015. The reorganization and restructuring of the 2.3 million strong People's Liberation Army, described by Chinese analysts as the most extensive ever and which has been on the drawing board since well before 2011, is the most critical reform initiative taken by Xi Jinping since he took over in November 2012. So before jumping on the conclusion, I would like to mention that why Mandarin is so important, and how Taiwan plays its part when it comes to learning Mandarin. Taiwan actually is already helping a lot of countries by sending very qualified teachers to different countries, and because Taiwan is a democratic country and it do not involve itself with the different countries' politics, so it's more more favorable for different countries to welcome more and more Taiwanese teacher, and the way of teaching Chinese language, the way any Taiwanese teacher teach the language it's very much different from the different teachers. It's different from other teachers from China or teachers from India or other countries itself. And it will also help Taiwan in its soft power. And because of Mandarin learning in India, and because of a lot of TC, Taiwan Education Centers in India, many young Indians are getting familiar with the country that is Taiwan. Or so to say, if we keep the tensions with China in mind, some people would like to mention Taiwan as an island. So a lot of Indians, a lot of people are knowing Taiwan, and a lot of young minds are getting to know Taiwan. A lot of people who are doing IT in India, they are considering Taiwan for their career option. And they are also, side by side, they are also learning this language so that when they come to Taiwan or any Mandarin speaking, when they go to any Mandarin speaking country, it will be easier for them to just live in the culture and be more adjustable and accept the culture. Apart from this, China and India, because India and China, they share a very big border, and it's a very huge country. Both have nuclear weapons, and both countries are full of people. So if something happens, if anything goes wrong, the destruction will be huge. It's in numbers also, on papers also, the destruction is not going to be few in numbers. And it can harm a lot of countries, not only India and China. It can harm US, it can harm Taiwan, any country. So it's, and as a human also, it's our responsibility to promote things like that, like this, where we promote the countries to come and sit on table and talk and try to understand each other. My presentation is about Mandarin because I am from India, and I would like my country to know better the Chinese culture and the Taiwanese culture, and accept these two countries more warmly and wholeheartedly than we actually used to do. Then, without any judgment, without anything in the heart that, oh, maybe the opposite person or the counterpart may want to hurt me. If we know the culture, if we know why somebody is behaving in a certain manner, we get them in a better way. We understand. So when we understand the counterpart, it's better. The negotiation is more easy, and when we identify with their identity. So a language, when we learn a different language, when we learn a foreign language, it does not only does not only dump the barrier of language, we also dump the barrier which is there in the form of culture, in the form of food, or anything like that. So for me, because I got a chance, I got lucky to learn this language, and now I know, because I know Hindi and I know Chinese, some Chinese, I know that I can help at least my country to have a better position, if something like war happens, or anything which is not welcomed or not very much thought of. And also because I think that India and China, whatever is happening, whatever the small border skirmishes are happening between India and China, but it is not going to lead into a very big war anytime soon, only because I think that because India have this very manly prime minister called Mr. Narendra Modi. And most of the time when anything happens, it seems like it is happening because the counterpart, the Chinese, the country, the Communist Party or the PLA, they don't want to harm India on borders. They maybe, it's my idea, that they maybe want to harm India politically and in the politics inside the country. Because Modi is very much, Mr. Modi is very much fond of, he's a very manly, and he have this very lion sort of characteristic. Like Xi Jinping, he's very powerful. He's considered as a very powerful man. Xi Jinping, Putin, these people. So Narendra Modi is also one of them. So when something like this happened in India or on Indian borders, so people in India, they start questioning the government, and that is why we see that this time also the news, it happened on the 9th of December in Tawang, but it got we heard about it after so many days, after maybe 3 or 4 days. Maybe one of the reasons is this also, that both the sides do not want to talk about this, also because they don't want to they don't want to face their public that, okay, we feel small or something like that. And also if you notice, if you track Indian Parliament discussions, there were very few discussion on this, and the Indian government, they actually want to avoid such discussions, which is okay, but at least the country should know if anything like this is happening. People of the country should know. And also the first time when it happened, when the conflict happened in Galwan, my Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, he actually went on camera and said that nobody have came inside our land, which was then translated into Chinese and propagated very bad. Like, it was not in favor of India, because Chinese army and the political powers in China, they can directly say that, no, we didn't do anything wrong, because the Prime Minister of India himself is saying that nobody came in our land. Okay, so after this, I would like to jump on the conclusion. That is, no matter if the military takes part in a conflict, a humanitarian act, or a face-to-face negotiation to set conditions for a military course of action, language and culture matter. Acquisition of a foreign language promotes the knowledge, attitude, and skills relevant to living responsibly in a multicultural, interdependent world. Indian military will not only be professionals, but also professionally, but also socially responsible world citizens. So they should study a foreign language as a core competence, as they have to master the knowledge, skill, and attitudes of the language. And in the last, the Taiwan factor in India and in the relation between India and the Mandarin learning of Indian military, because Taiwan have this qualified teachers and the soft part diplomacy. It will not only help India, but it will help Taiwan. And India and Taiwan will, for the sake of future, we will have more opportunities, and we will have something beyond China factor. Sorry. So this was my presentation for today. Thank you so much.
Okay, so welcome. I have also written Shakta, which is the Bengali of welcome, and Wanin and Namaste. So my name is KAUSTUBHA SEN, and today I'll be talking about India and Taiwan from the perspective of the classic films of these two countries and the film directors who created those masterpieces. So this is the name of my presentation, from the perspective of classic films, India and Taiwan. About myself, I am basically from India, from the northeastern part of India. So after finishing my studies in 2019, I came to a city called Bangalore, where I used to be an electronics engineer. However, I again wanted to continue my study. So in 2021, I flew to Taiwan and I joined National Tsinghua University. And here I am doing a master's in astronomy. So in chapter 1, we'll try to understand some of the basic terminology and ideas and history about filmography. Now, first of all, what really motivates me? The greatest motivation is to showcase the works of the great filmmakers of India and Taiwan. Secondly, to find out what films can portray as of itself as an art. Thirdly, to understand how films impact our society. And finally, maybe it's a controversial question, but yeah, are there good and bad films? And how do we make a judgment about it? So before jumping into that, let us know what was the first ever motion picture made. So it was made by this person. His name was Louis Le Prince, and he was a French filmmaker. In 1888, he took a series of pictures of horses galloping and ran the sequence of the events rapidly and found this amazing thing called motion picture. And the name of this motion picture is called Round a Garden Scene. Since then, the era of cinematography began. With the technological progress, now we have motion capture technology, as you can see what's happening here. Then motion sensor cameras, so they sense the motion of the object and move by itself. We also have drone cameras, so we can take pictures from much higher elevation and difficult places. And also we have green screen technology or CGI effect, so we can recreate our imagination. But film is not just about technology. Film is an art, and there are so many artists involved in filmography. There is producer, the director, the scriptwriter, the cinematographer, the actors, the sound engineer, the musician, and the film editor. So as we can understand how complicated it is to make a film. Now, what is the special thing about films? Let us look at this video. Here, we can see some food and a person looking at the food. Secondly, we can see a little girl who died and the same person is looking at her. And thirdly, there is a beautiful lady and the same person is looking at her. Now, if we run the sequence again, we find that this is an expression of hunger. The second one is an expression of sadness, while the third one is an expression of love or lust. So just by changing the sequence of events, we can change the emotion. And this is the magic of films. This is called Kuleshov effect, and it was developed by Lev Kuleshov, a Soviet filmmaker during the 1910s. Now, while we come to the sequence of events, we should know that a sequence of events is a way of telling a story, and this is called montage. Let us enjoy this little sequence of events. Here, it is from the famous movie called Pather Pachali, and it was a movie directed by Satyajit Ray. In this movie, he showed the Indian villages, and these villages, there is a little girl who is trying to hide something and put it in a basket. Now after that, she again began to play something, and after that she could see her grandmother eating something, and she is looking at her intensely. Now here, as you can observe, that she is a little serious while she was looking at her grandmother, and now her grandmother is leaving the house. So basically her mother ignored her mother-in-law, and due to this she decided to leave the place. And it's all happening in a very rural region of Bengal during the 1950s and 60s. So this is a film by Satyajit Ray, and the montage of the film actually tells you that how beautiful and how realistic cinematography can be. It doesn't always need to be a lot of CGI and technology. So I just try to capture a part of the film. I already discussed it. You can see she was hiding from someone's sight, and then she was trying to hide the fruit, and then she began to play, and then she watched her grandmother eating, and she was very intensely looking at her, and then she found that she is leaving the house. So the quality of a film can basically be determined by the montage of the film. Now in chapter 2, we'll see some of the great films and filmmakers of India and Taiwan. So some great filmmakers of India are Satyajit Ray, Ritwik Ghatak, Adur Gopalakrishnan, Meera Nair, and Guru Dutt. Although the list is obviously not complete, but we have chosen a few of them. Similarly, in Taiwan, we have chosen Edward Young and Ho Xiaoxiang. They too are the really great names of this country. Now, one little pardon is that our time is very limited, so I will only discuss certain essential things from some of the movies, but I would really recommend you to watch all the movies mentioned here and also some more to gain a better perspective. Now, let's start with the works of Satyajit Ray. We cannot discuss Satyajit Ray without discussing his first film work, which is called Opu Trilogy. So Satyajit Ray was basically a filmmaker from West Bengal, and most of his works were in Bengali, except for a few. Now, Opu Trilogy is about a little boy named Opu, and his mother Sarvojaya, his father Harihar, his sister Durga, and his grandmother Indi Thakuran. Now, what happens is that with time he grows up, but during his growing up period, he faced a lot of struggles. All his family members gradually died, starting from his sister, then his father, then his mother. And as he married his wife, after some time while giving birth to their son, his wife also died. So Opu's life is full of losses and pain and suffering and poverty. Yet Opu is a dreamer, and he doesn't give up hope. Now, what happens is that in the last movie, that is where Opu's wife died, he actually gave up hope about life. He had a fear that life has no meaning because all the people he loves are always dying. So at the end of the movie, as you can see this iconic scene where Opu is holding his child and started running. It is that moment in the movie when Opu again gains his confidence about life. He gains his hope in life. Now, I would like to show you two special movie moments of Pather Pachali and one from Opur Sangsar. So here they are from a very rural part of India, and it was in the 1960s or 50s. So during that time, they didn't know that, they just knew that there is a thing called trains, and they wanted to visit, or they wanted to see the trains. And so suddenly Opu's sister stood up and looked here and there, hearing some sound, and then Opu and Durga started running through the fields of white. These are called kash flowers in Bengal, and Oppu, for the first time in his life, experienced a new thing called train. And it was from this moment that Oppu's journey of a life of dreams began. And the second movie scene is from the third movie of the Oppu trilogy. Here, a beautiful thing is shown. You will see the domestic life of Oppu and his wife Aparna. Now, Oppu and Aparna, they are not very rich people. Oppu is earning very less money, but still they look very happy. And one interesting thing about this scenery is that, let me just run this here. Yeah, as you can see, she was waiting for her husband, and then she began to play a prank by blasting a paper balloon in front of her husband. And then they began to discuss a few things after that. Now look at this scenery while they're eating. Now, generally, it's a patriarchal society where the husband is eating and the wife is blowing some air to make him cool. But just as soon as the turn of events happen, now the wife is eating and the husband is waving the fan. So a male and female equality has been shown in a movie made in the 1960s, which is really amazing. Now, let us come to our next great person, who is Ritwik Ghatak. Now, Ritwik Ghatak was also born in Bengal, but he never considered himself to be part of the divided Bengal, that is the Bangladesh region and the Bengal that is part of India. So I put it Bengal. Ritwik Ghatak's work is a work of classic Bengali movie, and he chooses to prefer the language of the people of the tribal region, the colloquial dialect, instead of using some formal language. So obviously I cannot show you, or you will not be able to understand the language here, but what I'll show you here is that there are two movies. One is called A River called Titas, and the second one is The Golden Thread. So here I will show you a small video from A River called Titas. What happens here? It's a very beautiful video where you can see that he took a lower angle shot of all the fishermen who works in the river Titas, and they are going like a voyage, and they are going for fishing. And it is one of the most iconic films since ever made in world movies. Obviously, Ritwik Ghatak's work has been displayed in Harvard University conference a lot of times, and yeah, he's one of the iconic directors, although in his life he faced a lot of failures. Now let's come to the southern part of India. In Kerala, we have Adur Gopalakrishnan. Adur Gopalakrishnan was a director from South India, and he's a Malayali director. Now, he has a lot of amazing movies, but here we'll talk about one special movie, which is called Mathilukal. Mathilukal means the walls. Now, Adur Gopalakrishnan's work actually shows how our situations of life changes, and our perspective of looking at life also changes. If you there is another movie, Anantharam, but I didn't discuss it here because of the lack of time, obviously. Now, in this movie, there is a beautiful scene, as you can see here, because we have already witnessed so many love stories, but here there is a prisoner. His name is Bashir, and Bashir is actually a writer also, and it was in the pre-independence period of India. So he was whistling, and suddenly on the other side of the world, he listened to a female voice. Now, all this time Bashir was in the jail. He was very tired. He was very exhausted, and he didn't feel anything lively. And suddenly, listening to her voice from the other side of the wall, he became really happy. Now, what happens is that it is a conversation going on between Bashir and that woman from the other side of the wall. Now, when Bashir was released from the prison at the end of the movie, Bashir suddenly found that he is very unhappy. He suddenly found that all his freedom, all his happiness was gone because he cannot talk on the other side of the wall. Although Bashir never saw that woman on the other side. So I would definitely recommend you to watch that movie because there is English subtitle available and it is also available in YouTube. You can watch it. Our fourth director, he's one of my favorite directors, and he's Guru Dutt. Guru Dutt is actually the director who created pain and social deformities, and Guru Dutt's own life was also an example of social issues surrounding him. His two films, Pyasa and Kagaz Ka Phool. Pyasa means thirst, and Kagaz Ka Phool means paper flowers. Both portray the true nature of human beings as selfish and self-obsessed. These films also showcase how a true artist can live a truthful life by being devoid of fame. Now, one special thing about Guru Dutt is shadow lighting. So this is a picture by Nithya Anand. She's a photographer. Now, it is an example of shadow lighting. In the midst of shadows, only a narrow frame is lighted to capture the expression. Now, if you look at Guru Dutt's film Kagaz Ka Phool, that is paper flowers, you will look at this. You will understand what I'm talking about. Here there is a beam of light coming, and everywhere there is dark, and a woman is coming slowly. And as soon as she arrived in front of that beam of light, Guru Dutt himself also acted in that movie. So he suddenly noticed a beautiful thing. Just look at the capture. I'm sorry. Just look at that moment of frame or the frame he captured. Maybe here. Yeah. So this is the effect of shadow lighting. And the second thing he brought into the film industry is called deep camera zooming. So here Guru Dutt is trying to give a monologue where he is talking about society, like why people are selfish and why people care more about money than about friends, why a society is devoid of any empathy and rather it only wants its own gains. So while he was telling that dialogue, Guru Dutt is slowly bringing the camera right into his face, and it actually intensifies the effect of the dialogue. So these two things are some of the most pioneering innovations in movies brought down by Guru Dutt. Our fifth filmmaker is an Indian-American filmmaker. Her name is Meera Nair. So her film, The Namesake is actually a movie based on the philosophy of The Overcoat by Nikolai Gogol. He's a Russian writer. Now, there is a dialogue in the movie. We all came out of Gogol's overcoat. And what does the author mean by this dialogue? We'll try to have a brief idea of the story, The Overcoat by Nikolai Gogol. So the story goes something like this. There is a man who used to work as a typist, and he only has one good coat to wear in winter. Now with time, the coat has worn away. So he finally decided to go to the tailor and fix it. When the tailor fixed his coat, he found that it looks really amazing. He suddenly started gaining appreciation from his colleagues and other people. They began to party with him. They began to talk with him. And he really felt happy. Unfortunately, one day a thief stole his coat, and he somehow confronted that thief and got killed in the process. But what's surprising, you might be surprised to find that why is this story amazing? Like his life was always good. So just because he repaired his coat, he got killed. So what good is there? The good part is that our beliefs, our plans, our dreams, this is a linear scale or a line that we have always drawn in our life. But suddenly, when reality comes, it gives a nudge in our life. And this nudge actually makes our life turmoil. And this turmoil might not seem to be really good. But if we look from the other side of the coin, we find that this turmoil actually gives us a new experience. So a few days before the death of that person was really happy, and he lived the lifetime of happiness only in the last few days of his life. So yeah, here is that famous dialogue from The Overcoat, which is called "We have all came from Gogol's overcoat." Now let's come to Taiwan. So I never watched Taiwanese films before this making this presentation, but I was really surprised. And Edward Young's work is a work of art, I would say. His two films, EE means a 1 and a 2, and A Brighter Summer Day are two of my favorite works, at least until to this extent. Here I discussed the film EE. EE, there is a special thing called the art of static camera. Now, if you look at this frame, you will see that there is a frame. The camera is fixed, and everything is happening here. The little girl is coming, and slowly she is just watching what's happening here and there. But nowhere the camera is changed. Now there is another fixed frame, and she is listening to a conversation between her mother and the doctor, because inside someone else is there, and it's actually her grandmother. So she slowly goes inside to see her grandmother. All this time the camera was fixed, but as soon as it was a moment for her to meet her grandmother, the camera moved. So this is what intensifies the effect, and it actually makes the film very natural. The understanding of the film and the flow of the idea actually flows along with our thought process. So basically, EE is also not just about static camera. Edward Young's most of the work is basically on static camera. In fact, EE is also a film on the modernization of Taiwan since the days of being an independent country. EE actually shows an idea called reflexive modernism. So the idea is something like, in the modern days or in the modern society, we all want gains, we all want profit, we all want our life to be good enough. But again, as a society, we also think that whatever we are gaining is actually impacting the society. So that's where the term reflexive comes. That is, we are trying to reflect our society from the perspective of how the society is getting affected by us. So EE actually reflects this story. So please watch this film. Secondly, there is another great director, Ho Xiaoxian. Ho Xiaoxian's films always has a political angle of thought. However, I watched the movie A Time to Live and A Time to Die, and it is one of the greatest films I have ever watched in my life. In A Time to Live, A Time to Die, we'll come back to this scene. Here we can see it is the last part of the movie where the hero, the protagonist of the movie, Aha, his name is Aha. So Aha loved this girl since the start of the movie, but finally he was able to confront her, and all the thing he did was he just gave her a letter. And as soon as he gave her the letter, all she said was, okay, until you get into the university, let's wait. And all Aha's plans were to get into the military and get a job somehow. But just because of these words, he again found life. Now, why is this important? Yeah, it might look a very normal idea that, yeah, we all get motivated by our life partner at some point. But the point here is that if you look into the two fixed camera shots here, one is when Aha's father died. He was a child. That time, Aha was looking at her mother. She was crying at interval, and she was really desperate. And all her brothers and sisters were crying. But when Aha's mother died due to cancer, only Aha is crying, and no one else is crying. So that was the time he really realized the intensity of the situation. He really realized that all his life's hope and happiness has gone. and then this thing happened. So this is the movie making, and this is what makes the movie one of the greatest movies to watch. Now in chapter 3, we'll see how films affect our life and what is there between films and our life. So films are a portrayal of life. Now films show realization, progress and modernity, crime, pain, culture and occupation, dreams, struggle to survive, love and relationship, and films connect all these thoughts through various camera actions, cinematography, editing, etc. Also, now if we come to the classic films, what they do, they also interconnect all these things, how one thing can lead to another. So this is the important thing about classic films. Now, two important questions comes. One is, why are classics less popular than commercial films? Secondly, what do you think about the importance of classics? I will answer the first question. The answer is that because classics portray the possible reality, but the commercial films portray our expectations. In classic films, the flow of events become priority, while in commercial, the person who acts and the protagonist, that is the hero, becomes the priority. So in commercial films, the hero always wins, the villain always loses. But this is not the reality of society or life. So the classics never choose a hero or a villain. It only chooses the facts, what is happening, and show it as they are. Now, I would like to go back to you and ask, what do you think about the importance of classics? I acknowledge my presentation. I acknowledge my friend Pratham Kaur, Professor Fang Tianxie, and everyone here who listened to this. And this is the end. Thank you.